There's much more to life than drinking milk and paying taxes, my dear.
And to present you...
That's mad.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Mad Records podcast. My name is Michael Gilbride. I'm the founder of Mad Records, an online collective that provides opportunities and support to independent artists. Today, I'm speaking with Mad Records Collective member, one of the most awarded copywriters and creative directors in the advertising business today, David Baldwin. David is the founder of Baldwin & in Raleigh, North Carolina, which was named Small Agency of the Year twice in its first 5 years by Ad Age and the 4As. The former chairman of the One Club in New York City, David was an executive producer for the award-winning film Art and Copy, and an associate producer for the Emmy and Peabody award-winning film The Loving Story. His advertising work has been recognized by The One Show, Cannes Lions, and many more. As part of the agency's commitment to creating and incubating its own brands, David also co-founded Ponysaurus Brewing Company in Durham, North Carolina, which continues to thrive to this day, winning awards at the Great American Beer Festival and being named Brewery of the Year in North Carolina in 2023. David is also an Amazon bestseller, and his work and writings have been featured in numerous publications and college textbooks on advertising. And today, David is a songwriter, musician in the band The Gumbies, which you are listening to right now, and we will make available in the Substack post below. And he started a music publishing company called Dav Jam. He's also the DJ for the community radio station Gutsy Radio, which can be found at gutsyradio.org.
I know that was boring.
Holy moly.
But I don't like to be bored, so I apologize.
That's a resume.
Yeah,
that's great.
Too much.
I love it. That's what we're here to inform about who our guests are. What's the point if we don't know who you are? But David, dude, it's great to chat. I'm excited to do this.
Oh, it's so good to be here, man. I'm such a fan of Mad Records. It's incredible.
So, just to kind of paint the landscape for the folks listening. So, one of the things that we bump into in the collective all the time is we run into artists and creatives that have two kind of what they think are separate lives. They've got their professional life and then they've got their music, right? And for you, that has looked like on the professional side, you have this incredible career in advertising and branding. And then on the creative side, you've got this project, The Gumbies, which we're going to talk about as well too. But what we try to do at Mad Records, which you know better than anyone, is blend those two worlds together and tell one cohesive story. And you've been doing such a great job of that on your Substack, where you kind of dive into the branding behind music and some of these amazing bands and brands throughout the years. So I want to start a little bit with like your professional journey, because I think it informs the music journey a bit. So can you talk to me a little bit about when did you get into advertising, and what did the beginning of this whole process kind of look like for you?
Yeah, so my mom worked at an ad agency very early, from the 1970. And so people ask me how long I've been advertising, and I say since I was 12, because I would, you go into work with your mom or your dad. My dad was a barber who then worked for a paper company called Dixon Paper Company, which was, my dad worked for Dunder Mifflin. He was like a paper salesman.
And I'm from Scranton, so it's just
amazing.
Works.
But so I used to go into my mom's office and go like, who are those dudes in the back, like with the cool tables and the long hair and the jeans? You're like, how are those guys getting paid? That's cool. And she told me about being a creative, what was called a creative person in the ad industry. You're called a creative person, which I always found interesting once I realized, that you can be a creative person and not be in advertising. You're just. I think everybody's a creative person. You couldn't convince your spouse to go to a movie if you weren't, that they don't want to see if you're not a creative person. So I knew very early on, I was a musician very early on. I started playing guitar and was in bands very early, and kind of felt like, well, if I don't have an idea that I can make a living playing music by the time I'm 19, I'm going to pursue another creative avenue, which is advertising, which I think is really cool, and I loved it, and I had some sort of awareness of it, probably beyond some of the other people that were going into the, a lot of people go into that field when, at my age back then, because they liked Bewitched, and they were like, Darren was an ad guy, so, but I had
now it's Mad Men, it's Mad Men.
Well, I hear that all the time to this day. I mentor a lot of kids, and I hear a lot of, I saw Mad Men, and I'm like, well, that's not really a thing anymore. You know? But yeah, so I decided that I was in a band in Austin called Bonsai Kick. Believe it or not, very 80s sounding name. We were called the Bats, and then we changed our name because there was another Bats already that was signed. And we got kind of close to getting signed, and I was just a sideman. I really didn't write anything. I was just a guitar player who could play fast at the time. And but I kind of went when that fell apart. I was like, well, I don't know if I'm getting any closer than that for a while. And so I really focused on advertising at the University of Texas and then moved to New York. But the entire time I played guitar my entire life, and I never stopped writing songs, and I never stopped thinking of myself as a creative person. And my advice to anybody in the Mad Records community who, Einstein had a day job at the patent office.
Did he?
Yeah, he was a patent clerk, and then he was doing his work, and then he, of course, then became who he was and became full-time doing that. But yeah, he worked for the patent office I think in Switzerland or wherever he was. And a lot of artists have day jobs because art doesn't always pay you. And so I don't know that Monet, I don't know if Monet had a day job. I bet he did at some point. I don't know if he ever considered himself not a painter. And so I just think creative person, air quotes, creative person is a mindset as much as anything.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is one of the reasons why you and I have gotten along is that like when I wanted to be an artist and I thought the best path for me becoming an artist is going and working in finance for a couple of years so I actually have some money to put into my career, right? I think there's this romanticization, if that's a word, of like, oh, I'm waiting tables, therefore I'm an artist. But if I work in IT or if I work in customer service or I'm a construction worker for some reason, that doesn't feel like as noble as roughing it as a starving artist.
Right.
And I think that destigmatizing that is a big part of what needs to happen for the next generation of artists to really kind of come up and be confident in themselves. Is this idea is like, yeah, okay, great, you work a 9 to 5. That doesn't mean that you're not a creative person. In fact, like you said, being a creative person is a mindset. Being an artist is a mindset. So when you took that detour and you said, okay, 19, I'm going to go into advertising here. Did you feel like at that point that you were giving up, or were you saying, cool, I'm going to take the path that's in front of me right now, and I know that I will at some point return to the music?
I don't think I made it so divergent from itself. I think I thought of advertising as a creative pursuit, which it was for me, and treated it as a creative pursuit. And to get back to your point about, somebody working a 9 to 5 IT job, it starts to be energy allocation, right? Like you have a certain amount of energy every day to put into whatever your passions are. And that doesn't mean you don't go to work and be the best employee you can be, but you can still say, well, I'm a guitar player, but I work in IT during the day, or I'm a singer, or whatever I am. And it really is, I think it's what Rob Shustak calls like, notice what you're noticing. It's like, what's the story you're telling yourself about who you are? And if you start to tell yourself this story of like, well, I'm a 9 to 5 guy, I'm not really an artist, well, then you're not.
Right.
And it doesn't, my advice to anybody doing any of this is to divorce themselves from success and instead commit to output. And I feel like that's where I just was way more concerned with the output than I was with, am I successful at it? And of course you want to be successful. I'm not saying you don't, but I think, there's an old saying in advertising, and it probably was bastardized outside of advertising, but it's kind of, pay great attention to the small things and let the big things, like, don't pay attention to the big things,
Yeah.
And I find that is really important in sort of any craft that you're doing, of like, pay attention to the details in your output, and that's all you should worry about.
Right.
It really is all you should worry about.
I agree with you 100%. Focusing on what you can control, the inputs, and then letting the outputs take care of themselves is a lesson that I've unfortunately had to learn many, many times.
Me too. Me too. I don't want to act like this was easy.
Trust me, I know firsthand it's not.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you start your career in advertising. How did that lead you to starting your own agency? Like, what bridge that gap for me? Like, how did that journey kind of play out?
Well, Yeah, I had some ideas that an agency should create its own IP and its own brands for, for lack of a better way to say it, that we were really great at creating narrative storytelling around a company. Well, if we can actually create the company and the narrative around it, wouldn't that be powerful? And what if our agency model was to create our own brands and our own businesses as well as do work for clients? And part of the storytelling there for clients was, I'm on the same side of the table as you. I might be a creative guy, but I own a brewery, and I own 3 companies at one time, And so I was the CMO of the brewery for 10 years. And so I could sit and talk boardroom talk with any marketing person or CEO because I was in the C-suite of my own companies. And so it just became a really powerful way to differentiate ourselves. But a lot of the agencies that I worked at were like, that's a distraction. We're not going to create our own stuff. We're not going to create our own companies.
So can you clarify what you were creating companies inside the agency?
Yeah, incubating companies out of our company. And so like we started a brewery called Ponysaurus Brewing back in 2013. The agency started in 2010. And so 2013, we tried to start a chocolate bar, which I learned a lot about. You can't start an agency and a chocolate bar at the same time, which we tried to do. And so we started this brewery, and we, the thing there is to find a partner who has expertise in whatever you're doing beyond the branding part of it. So I partnered with this company that is excellent at hospitality, and we still run it together to this day. They run it, and they're great partners. And it's at a point now where I'm mostly retired at this point from a standpoint of going into an office or doing anything. So I have at this point monthly meetings now with the brewery people, like my partners there. But that was the idea. So and then we also encouraged all of our people to start their own companies as well. So one of the current CEO of the company now has a guitar building company called Redeemed Guitars, and he builds really amazing guitars. He builds the best necks I've ever played in my life. But their stuff's incredible. So if we can put a link in, like shout out to Jerry Beaudry, who started Redeemed Guitars, it's really cool. And he and my partner at the time, my founding partner, Bob Renew, started a company that rebuilds motorcycles, and they called that Redeemed Motorcycles. So Redeemed Motorcycles came first, and then Redeemed Guitars came after that. But 2 separate companies with their own P&Ls and their own thing. And Bob was one of the top 20 motorcycle refinishers, rebuilders, I don't know what you call it, in the world. Like he's got this really cool company called Redeemed Cycles. So, and then we had people that were managing bands, and we just were encouraging people to be entrepreneurs, and we would support them in however we could.
So I'm curious, I know it's getting a little in the weeds, but I think like this is the perfect example of you're taking your creative energy and you're bringing it into a new space, and you're disrupting the traditional agency space, and you're finding new ways of doing it. And to me, that's just as creatively fulfilling as releasing a new song or something like that.
Totally.
Right? It's an artist mindset to the professional side of things.
Totally.
So I'm curious, when you would launch these brands and then you were acting as their ad agency, I know this is kind of in the nuts and bolts, but I'm just really curious. What was the revenue model for that? Were you taking ownership in those brands, or did you own those brands outright and you were doing the ad agency side of things essentially for free because you owned the companies that you were promoting?
What we would do is but we would put a number on it and create what our ownership was. So if you looked at a cap table of the company, the Baldwin and had over 10 years put in $800,000 into Ponysaurus just in branding. And so that gets accounted for. What we wanted to do that we failed spectacularly at was to get paid by our own, to literally get paid by our own companies. And we did get paid, but we never got paid off of anything sort of approaching what we should have gotten paid or would have gotten paid. Mm-hmm. However, what it did do was it created work and case studies and companies that were alive and sort of vibrant in the marketplace, doing really cool stuff with really great products. Ponysaurus as a brewery, we're winning at Great American Beer Festival, and we're we're a kind of a beloved institution in Durham and now in Raleigh. We've got 3 locations now. We were distributing in different states, but we stopped that with COVID. We just stopped doing it.
If you're an independent artist, there are only 2 things that you really need: opportunities and support. That's why I created the Mad Records Collective for independent artists. It's an online community where you can get access to real opportunities for your music career, as well as support, feedback, and guidance from our team of professionals. Inside the Mad Records Collective, you'll have opportunities to get your music in the hands of major music publishers like Warner Chappell and Primary Wave. You'll also have the chance to get your music featured in our monthly Substack publication, or even on this very podcast. But more importantly, you'll be surrounded by a community of other independent artists and coaches that can help you get clarity and momentum with your artist career. And to celebrate the launch of Mad Records Collective, we're offering a free trial so you can check it out and see if we're the right fit for you. We already have 200 plus artists in the community, and we're waiting for you to come join us. So click the link in the Substack post below, or if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, head to madrecordscollective.com/podcast to start your free trial of Mad Records. Okay, back to the podcast. Well, it's fascinating because that agency model is not dissimilar to a traditional record label where you are essentially promoting, marketing, and in some ways doing services for free or whatever in exchange for some sort of equity in that company or that artist, right? And then you're expecting that artist to then blow up and you make 10x your original investment. And I think that's the tricky part that I've also realized with Mad Records is like finding those 10x situations is a way harder said than done, or done than said.
I would say the only thing I would add, I think you're absolutely right. And the only thing I would add to that is one of the lessons I've learned is that a lot of the money, if you really want the payday, it comes with some kind of exit, and it comes with some kind of sale of the company. And that's not always sort of comfortable for, you have to be inured to that as an entrepreneur, that's a huge risk, that you're putting all this work in for a good amount of time in order to make a sort of payday later on for that. So you need to really enjoy that journey. And I would say that's probably the case with traditional record companies too, right? They're hoping 10 of their 500 artists hit it, and their business model makes that work. But
it's a fascinating point too that I think like is something that I've experienced in founders of other companies is if you want to truly cash out and make a good amount of money, like you said, there has to be an exit strategy, meaning I have to eventually sell this to someone else, which to me, coming from the corporate world, always kind of rubbed me the wrong way because, I like the idea of going in and disrupting and becoming the new player, not the idea of eventually selling to the same players that have always existed.
Yeah, what my plans on those fronts are not to sell to some big network, but was always to sell to the next generation of leaders in the company that you helped develop and grow, that helped you develop and grow the company. Yeah. And that's what we did with the agency for sure. And we'll see what happens with the brewery. I mean, we're trying to set it up. You don't really have a friend of mine said something like you have a practice, not a company if it can't be ongoing without the founders, Yeah. And what you want to do is create something that sort of like the flywheel starts to spin and kicks the engine into things. So the engine goes without you, Right. And that's when I think you're like, okay, I can turn this over. And I think unfortunately sometimes it means you're going to make less money.
I agree.
But I find it way more satisfying, That
was going to be my next question, which is like, have you found, because me personally with Mad Records, what I've noticed is there are all these levers that you can pull that are short-term levers that can make you more money, that require you just to kind of put your values a little bit on the back burner, or maybe compromise your customer base just a little bit, right? And there's all these levers that kind of are calling out to you and taunting you and tempting you and saying, hey, like, here's a quick way for you to make, some money here. And my focus with Mad Records is to just, ignore it from day one. it's never an option. Take the long-term approach. It's going to take longer. I'm going to make less money. Oh, and then when it works, it'll work, and that'll be great. Do you find like that was a similar experience in building your ad agency because it was so mission
Yes.
driven?
100%. And in fact, what happens with that is some real dissonance for other people that are in the company who don't have that perspective,
Oh,
that are like, where's my fucking money? Oh, can I curse? I don't know if I can curse.
yeah.
But where's my money? I want my money. And those people don't fit. And it's not that they're bad people at all. I'm not saying anything about
Yeah.
making a value judgment about the person. What I would say is this. I think of a brand, my definition for a brand is a set of behaviors based on a set of values, right? And then communicated through some kind of memory structure of a logo, visual vernacular, and tone of voice, and all of that stuff that you have to do. But what Baldwin and my agency is and was great at was showing you how to use your brand to drive your company and all of your behaviors as a company, not just your communications. And so my advice to Mad Records would be to think about yourself as a set of values based on a set of behaviors, and you will then know what behaviors are in or out of bounds.
Right.
And by the way, it's okay to be out of bounds sometimes. Sometimes you have to. But you have to know why you're doing it and have a calendar on it and all of that. It's like, we're going to do this for now for this reason. And then it lets you communicate that to your people so that they don't, because, you know, one of the things your people, it's like a family. Like you look at your parents and go like, you said don't lie, but you just lied to Mrs. Crabapple, you know?
Yeah.
And your people at your company look at you and go, you said we stand for this, and yet you're doing this. I can give you a really solid example of that. So at the agency, we got approached by, I can't remember, one of the big cigarette companies. And, you know, we wanted to do work that sort of made a difference. And we believed in the B Corp movement and using business as a force for good. And they approached us and said, we want you to do an anti-smoking campaign. And it was very lucrative, you know, and I wanted to do it because I was like, well, we can take this money and convert it into anti-smoking. Like to me, that's cool.
Yeah.
And we had an idea that we had a thing we used to do called coffee canning, where you just put a coffee can on the table and you'd have everybody in the company say yes or no to an opportunity. Because it would be a way of anonymously saying like, nobody wants to do this. Like just nobody wants, or everyone's in. And on that opportunity, 2 of us wanted to do it and 28 of us didn't. We were about 30 people at the time. And so I talked to my head of strategy at the time, Ashley, who's now one of the co-CEOs of the company. And she was like, David, you know they don't want people to not smoke. Like this is basically goodwill laundering, you know?
Yeah.
And I went, okay, we said we wouldn't, we're not going to do it. So we didn't do it, you know? And it was an opportunity to make money and really great, what would have been fun, interesting work, you know?
Right.
And I mean, when the company talks to you, like, you got to listen to them.
Yeah, it's fascinating because there are so many people that, one, would not loop in the company on that decision, and two, would not honor that decision once it's made. What I've seen so many people do, especially in the business space, is they go, well, to be a good businessman or woman, I have to be decisive. And even though 28 people voted no, I know what's best and I'm going to do it. And that's, for me, the quickest way that you destroy company culture, or at the very least, you end up attracting a bunch of employees that are just as maniacal as you are.
Yeah, you confuse people. You confuse everybody. I would say that, you know, for me in my career, I probably made 3 or 4 decisions based on money, and they were all to take pay cuts or less because it felt like the right thing to do, or the more fun thing to do, or the more, you know, the more sort of long-term thinking thing to do. And it all worked. It worked. I never regretted one of those decisions. Not one of them.
Really?
Not one of them. It was always the right thing to do, it turned out. And it's scary to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of the reason that I started Mad Records was because I've always been, I get it from my mom. My mom's German, and so she's very she's by the rules, and she has no problem telling you that. And so I always found that I love working in a team, but if I'm pushed to do something that goes against my values, I just don't do it. And that doesn't make you the best team member at all times, because sometimes people make decisions that aren't aligned with your values, and
Yep.
that's fine. It doesn't mean
Yep.
anything about them. But for me, that was like a no go. And so I eventually realized I was like, look, I'm gonna have to find a way to build my own thing where I can make these decisions.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
but
the only other thing I would say is that there's communication on top of that
mhm,
to let people really understand why. If you have to do something that's against your value, because you might say like, all right, who are the 4 people we're letting go with this decision? Like, if we don't make this, if we don't do the thing that we really need to do right now, there's a sort of a, it depends on where you are in Maslow's hierarchy of needs in the period of your company. If you're in food and shelter, you have to do stuff.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
And that you always know the difference. I think you probably would resonate with this. Like you have a gut instinct of when am I making this decision because I'm afraid versus like when is it actually
yeah,
time to make the decision.
totally.
And it's easy to justify the ones when you're afraid, but it's best to do it when you actually know it's time to actually do it.
100%. The one thing I do think, this kind of goes back into the music thing, is you have to make friends with fear. You just have to make friends with it and go, this is going to be scary. I understand it's scary. So I'm going to take that motivation out of it and do what I think is right. And I might really fall on my face, you know?
Yeah. Do you think
So,
that there's not to get woo woo, but
no.
how do you I've realized that there's an element of faith, belief in something that has to step in there. Otherwise, I would be pooping my pants every day. I guess
Totally.
I still do, but it's like every single day I'd be freaking terrified if there wasn't some belief that if I follow my values and I do what I think is right,
Yeah.
that it will karmically work the way it's supposed to work.
Well, I think that's true. I think that is how it works. And I think you have to realize that on the other side of fear is where opportunity always is. There's always opportunity on the other side of it. You may not get it. You may screw it up. You may blow it. But anytime, I remember with ideas, like just creative ideas, anytime, you're given a budget and a timeline that never match each other. It's like, we want to do amazing stuff for no money and no time. And we would always come up with these crazy ideas and go, oh shit, we sold it. What do we do now? We got to pull it off. And anytime we would sort of before that present an idea that you went like, oh no, like that sounds really hard, we would just go, everybody focuses on that for now. That's the scary one. What's the thing? What are the things we need to do to pull that thing off and make it happen? And then there's this sort of blind faith that we're going to sell it so that we have to do it. And, we did a live broadcast from Bert Shavitz's house, Bert from Bert's Bees, for their like 50th anniversary, or whatever the anniversary was, 30th anniversary, whatever it was. And I didn't know how to do a TV. We did a live TV show from his house in Maine. Like, it was insane. And it was the most terrifying thing we ever did. And, but we did it, we figured out how to do it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. It's interesting not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but like I've bumped into people in the business space that don't have that belief. And it's frightening because there's a lot of them are some of the most successful people in the world, I think. Like they're truly the more I go down this road of being an entrepreneur, the more I realize that to be a multi-billionaire, you almost have to optimize your entire life for making money.
yeah.
You used to think that you can kind of just make a great product and you end up being really successful and that's great. But I think there's actually a level where your entire life has to be optimized for making money. And that's usually like a very fear-based thing. But it is interesting because not everybody operates with that same level of kind of belief or whatever. And they do make decisions based on fear. And a lot of them end up being quote unquote successful, but they're miserable. Usually.
Well, I find a lot of those people not to be super happy people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're always unhappy.
Yeah. I remember when we were kind of figuring out our company, the agency part of it, we said, what are our values? And we said, we want to do great work. We want to have fun doing it. We want to have a great life outside of work. And we want to run a great business in that order. And that was in that order was the key phrase in the whole thing. Because it was like, it helped us make decisions about what we were going to do and what we wouldn't do. And, and is this a great opportunity to do great work? We don't know. And it really was a great compass for us,
So I want to talk a little bit about branding and about the evolution of branding and kind of where we sit now in advertising and branding, because I think a lot has changed and I'm curious to get your opinion on it. So I think you and I agree on the core thing, which is that your brand is somehow emergent from your values.
Yeah.
Right? Like your values are the foundation. Your brand emerges from those values. I think there's a lot of companies, corporations that's not the case.
Yeah.
You
Or they
and I would-
manufacture it. Yeah.
Exactly. And you can sniff that out up from a mile away. But I think good branding, good marketing, good advertising is emergent from your values. But I do think the one thing that's changed in the last 20, 30 years or whatever is that back in the day, you used to have control over your brand. You used to be very,
Yep.
you launched a brand. You were meticulous in getting the assets together and doing a big launch and having everything pointing in the same direction. Whereas nowadays, because the cost of advertising is so low, anybody can start a social
Yep.
media channel or whatever the case is. It's kind of like you just start putting things out there and your brand manifests in front of you.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that evolution. Do you feel like that's relevant? Is that more a personal brand versus a corporate brand, or I'm just curious what you think.
Yeah. I think it's really important to separate context from who we are and what we are as people. We're still cavemen gathered around a fire watching Thag tell us about bringing down an elephant, right?
Yeah.
We just are. Like, that's who we are. Nothing has changed. Like, people are the same. I think one of my fears right now is I do wonder how social media and AI and that is going to rewire us and possibly convert some evolution. I just read a thing today where we're seeing what's called de-skilling, where people's IQs are lowering. Like in the Nordic countries, IQs are going down. And
why?
They think possibly because of automation, social media, and AI in particular, that you don't have, just spell checking, for instance. Like, spell check is making you not have to know how to spell. Mm-hmm. Things like that. Now, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because I don't know about it. I just read a thing today. But I think from a marketing principles, nothing has changed. Everything's the same. Mm-hmm. And those are pretty bedrock. And I see, and I've been guilty of this. I see a lot of kind of, when I wrote my book, my publisher was like, you have to say traditional marketing's dead, and you have to, they were great, but I was like, but it isn't, but okay. And I did. And then I was like, okay, and I took the slings and arrows for saying it. Mm-hmm. So I think here's the things that are rock bottom. Like, you have to have these. And it is, what is your set of values that this brand believes? And sometimes they're super rational. Sometimes they're rational and emotional. Sometimes they're super emotional. And it just depends on what it is. And if you can define that, you already have a head start in the marketplace. What has changed is the context and the chalkboard and the campfire. It's a much bigger, more complicated campfire now. Mm-hmm. And so, we now have to navigate things we never had to navigate before. And you have people owning your brand for you on social media. And that's where it can really get crazy, because you just have less control over your, let's just call it a narrative for now. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but your narrative as a brand, you tell a story and you try to live that story. And I always say the word brand is a verb, right? It's a verb. It's about what you do as much as what you say. Like, you say something that you do, and then you better do it. And so as a brand today, you're having to navigate just, chasms of trouble, and you don't have a lot of money, and you don't have a lot of time, and you have, all sorts of new stuff that we're trying to figure out. The things that haven't changed are a brand needs to be distinctive, not necessarily differentiated. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but if you think about, distinctive means memorable, and when you see it consistently, you know what it is, right? And everybody thinks, no, I need to be differentiated. I need to have it's better than this, and it's different because distinctive means like it stands out. And I think that's something that especially for musicians and bands, that's like a really great lesson. Like, I just look at like band posters for bands, and they never have the same logo on them. It's always like, we're going to do a Western theme this time. And then this time we're going to do a thing. And you're like, you are so like just trashing like opportunity to have people understand who you are and have it look
Right.
the same and all that stuff. So brand distinctiveness has not changed. And that's something that I don't care where you are, you need to be distinctive. And you guys have a really tight brand ID that I've seen. I'd love to know from you, like, what went into that? What kind of thinking went into that?
Do you want to get your music in the hands of some of the world's biggest music publishers for potential placements in TV and film? Then listen up, because we're helping artists to do exactly that inside the Mad Records Collective. The Mad Records Collective is an online community for independent artists where we provide opportunities and support for your music career. And one of those is our Run for Cover challenge, where you have the opportunity to create cover songs for our publishing partners at Warner Chappell, Primary Wave, Cobalt, and more for potential placements in TV and film. In fact, one of our members just got their song that they created for this very challenge licensed for a season finale of a TV show, netting her a few $1,000 and a ton of exposure for her music. In addition to the Run for Cover challenge, members of our collective get access to real live sync licensing briefs where they can submit their original music for potential placements as well. And most importantly, we provide support, coaching, and feedback all along the way. So that way, even if you don't land a placement, you can still learn, grow, and develop your skills over time. We're doing all of this and more inside the Mad Records Collective, and for a limited time, we're offering a free trial so you can check out what we're all about. All you have to do is click the link in the post below, or if you're listening to audio-only version of this podcast, head to madrecordscollective.com/podcast to start your free trial. We can't wait to work with you. Now, let's get back to the podcast. That's an interesting question, because I sometimes think that I'm like, the Mad Records brand is really just my values, or at least in the early stages was just my values.
It almost always is the founders. At this level and this kind of company, it's almost always the founders.
Yeah. And I was like, marketing is super easy because I just go out and talk about values and passionately. And so in today's day and age, that's a competitive advantage because most companies don't have values or a lot of your competitors, don't talk about those things. And so for me, the brand kind of just emerged from me talking about my values, and it's starting to, it started to manifest into, okay, here's the fonts that we use because it aligns with, like, for example, our Mad Records logo, the smiley face that we have. It looks like a graffiti tag. Right. And I remember when we were doing our branding with our brand guy, Eli, who's amazing, Eli Spots, I said to him, I was like, I wanted to find what graffiti would look like during the Renaissance. Like if there was graffiti during the Renaissance, what would that look like? Because I wanted the feeling of great art, but I also wanted the disruptiveness of graffiti and the idea that this is like a populist driven movement. That was kind of whatever. But that all came from my own personal values, like we talked about. But I found it challenging as the company grows, or if you bring people in or whatever, it is challenging to let go and allow other people to speak about their values. And now the way to fix that is to hire in alignment with your values and make sure that everybody you're bringing in, obviously they're going to have different ways of discussing it and communicating it, but the core red pen things that cannot get moved need to be in alignment if you're hiring people, in my opinion. Otherwise the brand gets really confusing really quickly. So thankfully, I think we're small enough that everybody who's involved in Mad Records is steeped in the same values as us. But marketing is just talking about it.
Yeah. Well, this is what I was just going to say. My advice to you, but also what I have seen from you, which I think has been great, is to have a very simple articulation of what you're doing. And when you hire people, you tell them, what are you doing? We're upending the music business by, right? That's what we're doing, by creating a collective of artists around the world who blah, blah, blah. So whatever that is, like when people come in, you want them to say it to the new person that comes in.
That's been the biggest challenge, was like, is figuring out exactly what we're doing. Like that's been the hardest part. I know why we're doing it. I know what we're building, where we're going. It's what is it? Because if you're building something, and I'm sure you found this with the ad agency when you created it, there's an education. Anytime you do something new, there's an educational hurdle approaching someone and saying, we're an ad agency, but we actually launch the brand. And instead of
Right.
you paying us for the services, we take equity. And by the time you've said all of these things, people's eyes are glazed over because
Yeah.
there isn't an easy analog to that somewhere else
Yeah.
that they know.
Yep.
And that's been the biggest challenge with Mad Records is because most of what we're doing is just different. It's hard to actually explain what we are because it's not like we can say, hey, we're the XYZ of the music industry because we're
Yeah.
not doing something in the same model.
Yeah.
So my goal is just keep talking about our values, keep building, and that marketing
Well-
language will start to tighten up over time.
I guarantee you've already said it. You just need to go mine what you have. It's already there. Guarantee it.
Totally.
So I know that it is because I've heard you guys talk about it. So
Yeah.
so you know, I know like with Ponysaurus, with the brewery, again, like you think you have to be unique and what makes you better, but what you really need to be is distinctive and memorable.
Yeah,
And
I
so
love
what we used to say is people would say, well, what makes your brewery what it is? And we would say, well, we're a beer for when you're paying attention. You know, we're, if you just want to drink,
tight.
yeah, if you just want to, if you just mowed the lawn and you just want to hit some icy cold thing, that's not us. We're complex flavors and we're full bodied and we're really balanced and all that stuff. And then we came up with a line that was called Drink About It. And so we would just, and we used to say it to each other. We'd be like, hey, we got to drink about that. Like you'd go like, we have a decision to make. Let's drink about it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a stupid, funny, dumb thing.
Yeah.
But we used to, I mean, it works and it worked. And we have this other line, which is the beer would drink if beer could drink beer. And those things just live in the company as this sort of funny way of going like, well, but actually that's real. Like that's a thing.
Well, they're lyrics. And I
Yeah.
used to say this
Yeah.
when I was at mastering.com when we got together one day, we were doing our mission, vision, values, and mission, vision, values is like, could be either the most exciting thing that you do or it can
Yeah.
be the most teeth pulling
Yeah.
exercise. And my approach towards it was, I was like, we're writing lyrics here. Like this isn't,
Love it. Yeah.
we're not sitting down and going, we believe in educating the next generation. It's
Yeah.
like, no. Like that, we need to capture the spirit of what we're doing here. And the way you capture the spirit isn't by saying exactly the words that's going to do it. It's being poetic and you got to write lyrics, and all the three things that you just said, they're lyrics, you know? And
Yeah.
that's why,
Yeah.
that's what I love about the business space is that artists make such good business people if they just allow themselves to be
Right.
artists in that
Right.
space.
Right. So I do want to say this because I think it's instructive for what you guys are doing, but there's this really famous creative school called the Creative Circus in Atlanta. And their reason to be, like you say, what do? They say we make weird kids employable. They teach kids to be creative, like art directors, writers, and designers. And you think about like who that is in school, like it's the weirdos, you know?
Right.
And advertising just full of these weird creative people who do stuff.
Right.
And I remember the minute I heard that, I went, okay, totally get it. I get what you guys do.
Yeah. I think we're right on the cusp of figuring out that snappy line.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I think about. But again, it's like elusive. It's like writing
Yeah.
lyrics. It's like the more I try to write it, the less it kind of presents itself. So
Yeah.
okay, so talking about distinctive versus differentiated, I want to talk about some of the music stuff. So I think the first post that you put on Substack was like, can I launch a band at 60 years old or something?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this conversation feels so relevant to that because what I've been pounding the table for years now is that the 50 plus demographic of the music industry is entirely unaccounted for.
Yeah.
Aside from the stars that were
Yeah.
around
Except for Mick Jagger and
Yeah.
like these
Bruce
80-year-olds.
Springsteen.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's all the same people that were around when they were 20. But there's no new emerging talent. There's no new pipeline. There's no new things happening in that space unless you've existed from the time you were 20. And most people look at that as like intimidating. Oh, there's no way for me to crack into it. I look at it, I've always looked at it as like, someone go own that space. Someone go out and be proud about the fact that you're in this demographic.
Yeah.
Because what I found was in working with a bunch of artists of all different ages is that they always try and hide it, right?
Yeah.
If I'm 60 years old, well, the first thing I'm going to try and do is hide that in the music. And I've been pounding the table for people to embrace that. market that, talk about that, because you're not hiding from it. And if we're talking about a good brand being emergent from your values, well, ignoring your age is a critical flaw in your
Yeah,
long-term plan,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So your post about launching
yeah,
a
yeah.
band at 60, how do you feel like you actually go about doing it, and what have you learned so far through that process?
Well, I want to give you guys credit for getting me there. Honestly, I thought I did have to hide it. We came up with these
That's
little
fascinating.
the Gumbies. We came up with these little astronaut characters to be stand-ins for us because James is going to be 65 in May, and I just turned 64.
Yeah.
We're old dudes, man, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, we need to, like, the music we're doing, I think, is timeless. You know, it's kind of retro modern indie classic rock. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the way the sort of music industry has just genericized into like everything goes now. Like it used to be like, I like soul, but I don't like rock. Now it's like, I like it all. Like I like
Yeah.
everything. And, so we looked at that as one of those fear conversations we had earlier. We're like, well, if we let people know who we are, we're cooked. Like, no way the kids will like us. And Mad Records and you in particular were like, dude, that's your superpower, man. And I went, you know, if I was advising myself as a brand guy, I would go like, what are you, an idiot? Mm-hmm. Like that's your thing. Like that is your thing. Like you can't not be who you are. And it's everything I believe about branding is be honest with who you are, and then be the hell out of it. You know, be who you are and be the hell out of it. So I think for me, the Mad Records kind of, I'm going to just shamelessly plug you guys. The curriculum got me there.
Interesting.
You know, and I went into that curriculum going like, I know a lot about marketing, but I'm going to pretend I'm a sixth grader and don't know anything. You know?
Yeah, I really appreciate you doing that. I remember when you came in and you were talking about your background, and I remember being like, what am I going to teach this? What am I going to teach this guy? You know what I mean? That he doesn't already know, or what am I going to work with him on? But sometimes there's value in just having someone who's outside of yourself who can spot the thing that you're afraid of. And
it's everything.
I know that,
it's that saying of, I use it all the time, but I don't know who discovered water, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't a fish. You know, it's like,
yeah,
you can't see in your own environment. You just can't. So.
You can't. I mean, it was the same reason why I had this business and finance background, and yet when I ran my artist career, I ran it like an absolute idiot. Like,
Yeah.
like I spent money in places I should have never spent, and it's all because I was too close to it.
Yeah.
So, not to go on a tangent, but I do think that like, you know, it speaks to maybe our culture or society or something like that, where like I look at people in this age demographic and I go, man, wouldn't it be nice to have some songs and some lyrics about from people that have some experience and have some backgrounds and have made mistakes and
Yeah.
have been around the block and have some stories to tell. I think it's such a beautiful, rich area that hasn't been mined in the music industry for a while. And maybe that's because, you know, a lot of people in that age demographic were just writing music, like kind of shaking their fist at things changing. But I think there's a whole sea of people that could write music that's just well informed and experienced. So how have you found, since you've had that realization, how have you found your experience of releasing music, and what do you feel like is working, and what do you think is still challenging to kind of get your arms around?
Well, we haven't released a ton of stuff since I started the program. We have an EP that's sort of in torturous, like get it out mode, and it's in final mastering right now. And again, the Mad Records process has been great for helping that get better.
Yeah.
So we're about to do it. We just released our first cover 2 weeks ago,
Yep.
and I wrote a piece about it, and my paid subscribers got it early and all that stuff, which was really cool. But I think, you know, I want to go back one thing without answering your question, then I'll answer it. But I think if I was going to segment your audience, like there are the garage rockers from the 60s and 70s are all retiring now.
Yeah.
And we're all going like, we never stopped being musicians and we never stopped playing guitar. And I can't tell you how many friends of mine that are kind of on the cusp of retiring or just retired who are like, I'm back on the horse, man, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's a huge thing for you guys. But I think experience is kind of everything. But then I look at like a 23-year-old out there who's just producing incredible work. And I go, man, you know, this kid has this person has their antenna up, you know,
Yeah.
for experience and some kind of divinity, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't know if I don't think I answered your question, but I think there's a ton of people out there who are my age who have a lot to offer. That's what I would say.
I agree. And I think the one thing that's kind of become clear the more I've gone down the road of Mad Records and prior when I was at mastering.com is there's a beautiful relationship economically between those two camps where a lot of the folks, like you said, that are retiring now, that are looking to get back into music and reemerge back into music, they are usually people they've had professional careers, they've had equity in things, they bought their homes at, good times and whatever the case is. They have money to spend and they're willing to pay for education.
Yeah.
And the young people are hungry to share their skills and need some capital.
Yeah.
And there's a really beautiful relationship that's taking place right now if people open their eyes to it. And I've talked about this with some people around me, is like there's such a beautiful connective tissue between older audience with capital that wants to learn and young audience with skills that needs money. And Mad Records, as we still continue to figure out what this is, bridging that and building relationships between those two would create such a robust renaissance for art, because you would have all of these people with incredible experiences that are getting the skills they need to release it. And then all of these really young people are at the beginning of their careers who have a little bit of startup capital to be able to actually invest in themselves.
Yeah.
And I think the disconnection between those two age demographics really holds people back from making interesting stuff, because one group has the money and the other has the current skills. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think facilitating that is going to be a big part of what we do as we continue.
Yeah, I've experienced it. I mean, I'm often the oldest guy in the room, so
that's good.
Not always, but often.
So, all right, you're getting ready to release this EP, and you now have had this aha moment of like, okay, I need to be who I am, and I need to be that person. What's the strategy for you now? If you have to put your advertising cap back on and you're advising yourself, what are you telling yourself right now? Are you tired of submitting your music to playlisting services and submission platforms only to get blanket rejections, unhelpful feedback, or maybe land a playlist that uses bots to stream your music? The truth is, there is no magic bullet for building an artist's career. No playlist or blog feature can create overnight success, despite the promises of many companies advertising to independent artists. Unfortunately, I fell for a lot of the same traps as an independent artist myself, which is why I created the Mad Records Collective, an online community for independent artists where they can access real opportunities and real support for their music career. Inside the collective, we take a long-term approach to building your artist career. We teach you how to build a community around your music and how to stack real wins over time rather than constantly chasing a lottery ticket for your music. So don't waste more time and money chasing overnight success. Come join the Mad Records Collective and let's build your music career the right way. And for a limited time, we're offering a free trial so you can check out what we're all about. All you have to do is click the link in the post below, or if you're listening to the audio-only version of this podcast, just head to madrecordscollective.com/podcast to start your free trial. We can't wait to work with you. Now, let's go back to the podcast.
Well, I think what James and my partner James and I have a partner who lives in a different state. We've known each other since we were in our teens, and we've played together our whole lives. So we're working on that exactly. We kind of have an open brief for ourselves right now to say, like, what are we? We can't play live. So that's a huge thing. That's just a constraint. Within constraint is always opportunity. Yeah. Like, I have a friend named Ernie Schenk who always says, when you're inside a box, it's the best time to get out versus just going, you can do anything and be outside of the box. So that's what we're trying to figure out. But I would say, I thought that the music we were creating was for our age group, and it's turning out not to be. That actually a lot of the feedback that we get and a lot of the streams that we get and stuff are not coming from old guys, and so I don't know if we have all our answers yet. I know that I have a little bit of a marketing plan put together of what we're doing, and I'm going to kind of Helen Keller my way through it. I'm kind of feeling my way through the cavern right now of what that means, because what we thought 2 years ago and what we think now are completely different. It's all been a kind of revelation of what we thought we had to do. You know, we thought we had to work Spotify. You know, we got to get streams on Spotify. That's what we thought.
Yep.
And it's been a real education to go, that's dumb. Now, Spotify, fantastic for distribution, you know,
Which you wrote a great.
which I wrote a thing about. Yeah.
Yep.
And so the marketing principles that I would want any band to think about is having a distinctive identity. And that doesn't just mean visually, it just means who you are. And distinctive doesn't mean you have to be the best players in the world. It just means you are who you are. And you articulate yourself fully as to who you are. And then the other is to drive awareness and distribution. That's it. Get people to know who you are and be as in many places as you can. That's how you grow. That's how brands grow. And to get nerdy for a second, there's this thing called broad reach is actually better than super targeted. So you want to get your stuff to more people. You want to drive casual usage over fanatical usage to grow. Fanatical usage is great. You can make money and it's a segment, but once you get them, it's hard to get any more out of them. You get what you get. And so that's one of the things that we're talking about is how do we treat the Gumbies as a brand and get more people to sort of go, that's cool, I want to be part of that. You know?
Do you have if I had to put you on the spot and say, what's the Gumbies line for the drink about it or what are the Gumbies?
Well, we've said we're retro, modern, classic rock. You know, that's what we're saying, but that's not really a sort of brand identity. So
It's like a genre.
I don't think we've articulated ourselves well yet. I think that's one of the things that we're actually working on through the compass, you know, the artist compass, and through what we're doing is to figure out what that is, because I think one of our biggest opportunities is in sync, and that's not playing live. Like we're not, you know, we don't have live opportunities yet. And when I say that, that's where we could find a way to do that. That's the most amazing way to do it ever. Right.
Right.
So
totally. Yeah. I think there's
maybe we meet on a rooftop once a year, you know?
Yeah, totally. I think like this idea, not to spitball on the spot, but it's like, you know, rock and roll from guys who have been there type of thing, where it's like, I remember we had this student, I talk about her all the time. She was one of my favorite people in the world, Claire, who was the first artist that I ever worked with in my incubator program. And she was 67 years old, and she made music that sounded like Fleetwood Mac, but it didn't sound like someone emulating Fleetwood Mac. Yeah. It sounded like someone who was there. Like, and there's an authenticity to that, because nowadays you'll have people who do classic rock or you know, a Fleetwood Mac sound, and they're emulating it. But there's something about like, I was there when it happened, and I know the spirit of what it felt like back then, and you're going to feel that in the music, that I think is just interesting. So, all right, let's see. Last questions before I let you go. What would success look like for you with the Gumbies?
Well, doing it is success. I have a very hard kind of feeling that making it for me is doing it. Just being able to do it is 99% of the thing. Versus I don't have an end zone on this. There's not an end zone called we win a Grammy. Like, I don't have that. I have oh my God, I get to play music every day, and I get to apply learning. I love to learn. And so, you know, I'm playing guitar a certain amount of time every day. I'm writing lyrics every certain time every day. I'm trying to, you know, articulate myself on Substack to be helpful to other artists, which I really want to do. I want to be a resource for other artists. All of that journey is making it, as far as I'm concerned. And it's funny. The guy I cannot get away from him is Youngblood. This guy Youngblood, this kid. He's he's got a great PR team, right? Totally. I don't know if I could tell you a Youngblood song, but he's everywhere. That's not my view of making it, is to be, you know.
You're not the next Youngblood.
Yeah, I mean, if that happened, okay, you know, that'd be cool if that was the accumulation of all this effort. But to me, the effort is the journey. And I feel like I learned a good amount of time ago, but way too late in my life, that the journey is the destination in whatever you're doing. And if you try to, you know, when I was a young copywriter, I was like, I got to win a One Show pencil. The One Show is kind of the Oscars of advertising. I was like, I gotta win a pencil. I gotta. And then you win a pencil and you're like, well, what do I got for next year? Like it's the most satisfying thing you've ever had. It's great. It's awesome. It allows you to have the career that you get to have. But, you know, I ended up winning like 25 of them, and it's like, okay.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, in the sense that, like, in order for success to happen, you have to act in a way that you're okay with it never happening. Like, the successful people, to become successful, your behavior has to suggest that you are okay with it never happening.
Yeah.
And that's like the dance that I've found with like both the artist career and the business side of things, is that if you try to capture it too much, it's elusive and it will evade you. You have to truly have some sort of faith and belief that it will come when it comes, but the more you focus on it, the more it kind of runs away.
I think to get full circle here, being focused on the output is making it. Like, that's making it. If you put out something that you went pretty good, I'm pretty happy with that, and then you look back, especially in 2 years, and go, that sucked. Like, I think that's great, because I think that means you're like, oh my God, I see things I didn't see before. I'm growing, I'm learning. I can't believe I wrote that line, that I thought was so good at the time. To me, that focusing on the output for me is making it.
Interesting. Maybe that's the hook for Mad Records, focusing on inputs, not output, because every other music marketing or promotion thing focuses on 1 million streams or this or that. It's like, just focus on what you can control. And
I think that's fantastic. But I also think your thing is something like, we're not making music, we're making artists, Yes. We're helping artists be better artists.
Right. And then there's the business. I've thought about that too. It's like, we're creating artist entrepreneurs. We're getting close.
Putting the business in the music business.
Yeah. Well, I
don't know. Well, I'll think about it.
Yeah. I need a snappy Baldwin and little one-liner for it.
Well, the truth is, you really need a Michael, like, from the heart. That's all you need is a from the heart of what we're doing, and it will happen.
Back in the day, I used to just smoke some weed and think about it, but now I don't smoke weed. I got to really dig deep.
Now you got to drink about it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, David, this was awesome. We'll go ahead and we'll link your Substack down
Awesome.
below.
Thank you.
So go check it out. David writes a bunch of amazing articles about branding and bands and his own music. And then tell people just about the EP that you've got coming out, and we'll go ahead and link the new single.
Yeah. So we have an EP coming out called Last Man on Earth, and it's 5 songs plus a cover of John Denver's Sunshine on My Shoulders. It's James and I, it's 2 of us doing everything except for drums at this point, because we just got to where we had to bring in a ringer.
That's the line.
Well, James is a great drummer, but it was stressing our schedules to come in over a weekend, because we'll come on over a 4-day weekend and put down everything. But it's a 5-song EP that I think is indicative of where we are right now. It's a very poppy, rocky, kind of hard rock pop record, and we're already kind of working on the new stuff. So it's funny how you write stuff and it's already 2 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And yet it's not out yet. And so we've already written a bunch of new stuff that we're really excited about. So,
well, I'll look for that.
How's that for selling that EP?
Yeah, it's music from 2 years ago.
I'm really excited
the
about
one-liner for it. Yeah. I'm excited for the world to hear it too, and I appreciate you chatting and sharing some wisdom. And we'll have you back on in the future.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm a huge fan of Mad Records, and I really think people, if you're an artist, you need to look at this.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye everyone.
Bye-bye.
That's mad.